that desire for matter, whether that matter is whether it's made of plastic, whether it's made of silicon chips, or whether it's made of flesh, desire for matter must lead to frustration, because we are non-material entities, and therefore no amount of material arrangement will satisfy us. This is a basic yoga truth that can save us so much trouble. Are we willing to take a look at our identity in a non-material way? I often quote someone who's arguably the world's most famous scientist amongst laypersons, Stephen Hawking. He says, just face it, we're all just chemical scum on a moderate-sized planet. So here we have chemical scum desiring, craving, and some or other, although we're just chemical scum, our cravings, our desires are having such an enormous impact that when combined, when all the desires are combined, it makes humanity into a geophysical force for the first time in known history. If we would consider that our conscious awareness indicates a non-material identity, we'd have a different way to see desire and deal with it. In my travels around the world, I often explain that the fact that there is no explanation for consciousness, other than belief, other than some postulations, there's no explanation grounded in experimental truth. This shows us that we're dealing with something beyond our material powers of analysis. For example, you can say that consciousness comes from the brain, and most biologists will say that, but there's absolutely no proof. If we would dare to look at things from another point of view, that consciousness indicates a non-material identity for the self, then we'll have another way of handling desire. There are desires of the body, of the mind, and then there are also non-material desires. So the whole purpose of the yoga system is to arouse non-material desires that have become submerged underneath the physical and mental desires. In the classic yoga text Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has a very interesting program for how to handle desires. First of all, you recognize that there are material desires, and also there could be the possibility of non-material desires. So desires based on matter, for matter, they are considered, from the yoga point of view, they're considered inferior. Because material things are temporary, they have a beginning and end. As you know, material pleasure affairs have a beginning and end. Yet, this is all we know. This is what we're about in terms of the identity that society gives us. We can always blame society rather than ourselves. So, this identity we have is a consumer, is an entity craving for stimulation. What will people do today without being entertained? Even information has to be entertaining. News has to be entertaining. We're habituated to being titillated and stimulated at every moment. Okay, be that as it may, let us look at the inferiority and superiority of desires. There's only one way that we can handle the constant influx of desires to enjoy matter. And when I say matter, I just don't mean inanimate objects. I'm referring to the desire to enjoy others' bodies, others' minds, because the yoga texts consider mind to be matter. Often people have heard of the expression that mind over matter. But from the viewpoint of the classic yoga text, mind is matter. It's a subtle version of matter. So, an attempt to enjoy matter, whether gross or subtle, is considered inferior because such pleasures have a beginning and an end. And a truly educated person doesn't take part in pleasures that have a beginning and end because that temporariness, that time-bound nature of such activities will lead to frustration, a temporary flickering burst of happiness at best. What to do about those temporary urges? We can't just isolate ourselves. Most of you certainly know by intelligent analysis that you can't simply wallow in desire. At some point you've got to curb the senses. You've got to restrain yourself. Otherwise none of you would be at university. The fact that you're at the university means that at some point, at least for part of your life, you restrained your senses. So, some degree of sense control we'll accept as necessary for life. But the question is, how much? We can't just run around fulfilling every desire that comes.